Hi, I'm Jalea. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Don't forget to subscribe if you find these tutorials useful. This video is all about the trim on Victorian gowns and how to make it. Turns out it's much easier than it looks. I've split this into two parts as it got rather long. So this is part one with pleats and part two is going to be poofs, ruching and piping. Enjoy! A lot of the techniques I've used in these videos I've learnt from this fantastic book. If you're interested in Victorian trim or decoration or anything, then I thoroughly recommend it. It is Embellishments by Astrida Schaefer. I'll make sure I link to this below. And she also refers to Hecklinger's Ladies' Garments, which was published in 1886. Knife pleats by hand. Before you start your pleats, make sure all your strips have the hem finished however you want to finish it. Remember, the Victorians did have sewing machines. A machine stitched hem is quite common. The top you can leave raw if it's going to be covered, or if it's going to be not covered, fold it under once and stitch along the top. I'm going to cover mine up with something, so that's fine. Okay, how big are we going to make our pleats today? These involve a little bit of maths, but not very much. So knife pleats work on a 3:1 ratio, so you're going to need 3 times as much fabric as your final trim is going to end up. Start at one end. If I want my pleats to be 1 pleat per inch, make sure this edge is nice and straight. We're going to mark 1 inch, 2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, all the way along. If you made a pleating board, you'd have to do this anyway. Then you wouldn't be following this. 2 inch. So if you wanted your pleats 2 to 1 inch, so 1/2 inch pleats, you would do 1/2 inch and then twice 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch, then twice 1/2 inch. I hope that makes sense. Then, when you've gone all the way along, do the same on the other side. You can also use pins, but I find pins very stabby. What you do want to do is be quite accurate, because I'm going to make lines with these. And so on. All the way along the strip. Of course, a sensible person would have done this on the wrong side, but there we go. This is only a demo. So once you've got your strip marked out, what I like to do at this stage, you've got pairs here, so you've got gap and then a pair, a gap. Take the second one and mark it in another way as well. This will keep your brain from exploding later. Or you could mark it in a different colour or something. Big gap, small gap. I'm probably being very confusing. So the 1 inch mark has a pin, the 2 inch mark doesn't. This will make sense in a moment. Bear with me. Where the pin is, you want to do a valley fold, which means, so we're getting a dip going over like that and pin that into place. The end one you probably wouldn't do, but we're just going to do it for completeness sake. Where there's no pin, we're going to do a mountain fold. Just pinch it with your fingers. I mean, you can do this straight onto the ironing board if you want to. Fold it back like that. Pin it so you can get the pin out. Pin it that way. And the pin is, let that come out again. Now this should be halfway along to the next one now. So what I would usually do is take that pin out, because I know it's going to be there, and pin that into place. And then make sure that folds on that one. Pin that into place. So it's going to be a mountain fold. So flip everything under. Pin it so you can get the pin out again. And I need a lot of pins. This one's going to be mountain fold, valley fold. Bring that back out. Hope you can see I'm folding on there. It's quite difficult to do for camera because I want to stick my head in it all the time. There we go. And so on. Again, that should be hopefully halfway to there. Take those out. Pin those. You can always check on the other side that they look even as well. I mean, if you're working on the wrong side, you'd want to do that. So So you can eventually get a bit quicker, which is to pinch that and go straight over to the next one once you have got a rhythm going. I didn't put my pins in here. Didn't put my markers in. Let's just pop those in. Pinch and over. Double check you're right. And you can always just do a quick measure. These look like they're getting a bit small to me. Use the grid I've got handy, or a ruler. To be honest, I wouldn't over sweat it. There we go, and so on, all the way down the strip. There we go, all pinned into place. We now need to press these, so if you are feeling, do check that the ends at the bottom here are lined up, which mine aren't quite, which probably means I've folded something strange. It's not so important at the top, but at the bottom. If you are a perfectionist, baste that, then we need to press it. These pins are fine. I'll turn these pins around so that they are glass head out. Turn all those out, and I'm going to press it and sew it. So I've sewn along the top, and actually, you know what a pleated thing looks like, but if you sew along the bottom, that also gives you this rather nice trim that you can then put something either side of. Twisted knife pleats. Finish the edges how you want. So if it's going to have covering, don't bother. If you'd like to just fold it over to have a plain edge, or you can machine edge. These will be attached on both sides though, however you do it. First thing to do is mark your fabric in divisions, however wide you want your pleats. In my case, 1 inch, because it makes my brain hurt less. Do that on both sides of the fabric and make sure that these are parallel. Starting with the first one, you want to put a pin every 3. 1, 2, 3, or an extra mark, your choice. I just find it easier to do this first. You don't have to do this step, but once you get into the flow, you probably won't need these. And also on that last one, just stick one in there as well. It's very similar to knife pleats, but I've just put the marker on the mountain rather than the valley. So just on one side, I'm going to make a mountain fold, valley for the next one, and then this mountain touches the third mark. Pick the next one out, mountain, valley for the next mark. Exactly the same as making knife pleats, but with extra marks. Try and keep this edge nice and straight. So on all the way to the end of your strip. And when you've gone all the way down, go the other way. Now this looks at first like it's going to become knife pleats, but this is the clever bit. So this one, where we put the pin here, is parallel across with that mountain. So we're going to take this mountain here, and instead of coming this way, which we would do to make a knife pleat, we're going to go the other way. Just straighten that out a bit. So the next mark is a valley, and that matches the third mark, like so. Pop in a pin. Mountain, valley, so on, all the way back down the other side of your trim. Sources will sew along a line a little bit further in to give a little ruffle at the edge. You can squish them if you want to. If you look at the back, you've also got a slightly different texture that's much more flat. So if you wanted that on top, there's nothing stopping you putting that side on top. Beautiful 3-dimensional trim. Box pleats. These are a bit more complicated. So you need to mark your strips in the same way that you mark for knife pleats, but be aware that the top of the box will be twice as wide as a single knife pleat. I have marked this again in inches just for ease of demonstration. In the same way that the knife pleats where you've got 1 unit, 2 units, 1 unit, 2 units, 1 unit. That 2 units is going to be the top of your pleat. And again, mark them on both sides. Again, finish your edges first. So the small gap, valley to peak, put a pin in. Big gap, peak to valley, put a pin in the peak. So that's a valley, valley, peak, peak, valley, valley, peak. So what you're doing is you're marking every other large gap. Again, it's optional to do this, but I just find it helps my brain. To start your strip, I'm going to make a peak towards yourself, like that. and pin it. It's going to be a lot of pinning. I've gone back onto the other side and checked, and there is a mark there. So that's my valley. A bit confusing because it's the end. I'm going to take those markers out. Next peak goes away from you. Check where your valley is. Fold it in and pin it. The next peak is coming towards you. There's your valley. Now you can start to see the boxes form. If your strip is any good width like this is, you might want to also put a pin across the middle just to hold that in place. Next peak is away from you, so you're alternating forward and away. You can make pleating boards to do this. I have got a box pleat pleating board. You make the board in exactly the same way. You make the box pleats. Well, see, this is easier when you can actually lean over it, which I can't because I'm trying to show you. There we go. Next peak towards you, and keep alternating all the way down. And there's your box pleat. There we go. Again, you need to press it, so it might be worth doing a baste first. Press it, sew along the top to hold it together. There's your box pleat. You can see the box. There we go. It's the same on both sides, so you can work on the back and have a good pleat at the front. This next one is a variant on the box pleats that I was taught by the amazing Luca of the School of Historical Dress. I'm not going to attempt to butcher his surname, which is a box pleat with this gorgeous little contrast trim. So I thought I'd show you how to do that. Pass the knowledge on. Start a similar way. We've got our strip. Obviously, if you're doing a full trim, you do it as long as possible. Finish the hem, and then on the top, you want to sew the contrasting strip. So that's the right sides together, hemmed it, and then I've pressed it over like that. Next, we're going to do our box pleats. Okay, so I've done my box pleats. They're a little bit wonky because I've rushed this. That's the back. I've also basted them before I press them because you do want them nice and even though I haven't done them very evenly. Anyway, do this when you're in a zen state of mind, not when you're trying to get a video finished. What we're going to do now is from the top edge where we've got this contrast, we're going to run a line of stitching half this width. So whatever your small measurement was, in my case, 1/2 inch. So we're going to run a line of stitching exactly 1/2 inch along there. Like so. Along there and along there. And now I take the basting stitches out again. Now for the other clever bit. This is where you realise just how precise you should have been, which I haven't been, especially at the end. Put a stitch in there. So I'm going to sew those two together. A couple of stitches, those two pleats. The back. So these two, just right at the top. Then squash that down. Like so. And then from the back, I'm just going to take a tiny little stitch. Don't pull it too tight. You've just got a big tack on the back, that's fine. Maybe a couple of stitches. Want them. And then back out the back. Up to the next pair. Sew those together. Front. Squash it down and together. Ouch. Stab yourself in the thumb. No, slightly awkward trying to keep this on camera rather than tucking it really close to myself. And like that. And if you can not catch the lining, then it will probably be better, which I'm failing to do. And back again, and so on. Right across. Really wish you'd got your pleats straight. Down and tie that off, but I've run out of thread. So there we go, really rather fabulous top to your box pleated trim.